An arrest in 1976, which should have ended his career, instead became proof of how deep his corrupting roots had grown. His truck was found with 39 kilos of cocaine. Escobar miraculously walked free. The judge was bribed. The two agents who arrested him were murdered the following year. A clear, cold, and brutal message to anyone who dared stand in his way. He was unstoppable. He was the law. With every transaction, every ordered murder, every bribe paid, his wealth grew exponentially. He was a dark King Midas where every touch turned cocaine into mountains of cash. At his peak, the Medellin cartel was believed to supply 80% of the world's cocaine. This number, if we just pause for a second to really grasp it, is a terrifying statistical anomaly. They smuggled 15 tons of cocaine into the United States every single day. The money was overflowing with nowhere left to store it, buried in remote fields, hidden in the walls of safe houses, or even in a dark twist of irony that became a criminal legend, burned to keep his young daughter warm while hiding in the cold mountains. This is the Pablo Escobar we know from headlines and TV shows, the monster, public enemy number one, the main villain in a global epic of good versus evil. This is the official story that, for decades, has shaped our perception of the war on drugs, a story filled with heroic crime fighters and the pure evil of the criminal. But this story, it's like the beautiful facade of a grand building that's rotting from the inside. It's incomplete, it's not entirely honest, it covers up fundamental cracks that, if exposed, would bring the whole foundation of our understanding crashing down. And this is where our file, the real file, begins to open. Not in a sealed government archive, not in police investigation notes, but in the heart of a young boy who was forced to watch and feel every moment of that madness up close. For 2 decades after his father's dramatic death, a death that closed an entire era, Pablo Escobar's son, Juan Pablo Escobar, lived in silence. He was forced to hide behind a new identity, Sebastian Marroquin. He wasn't just an eyewitness to his father's dark empire, he was an indirect victim of its endless violence. He was the heir to a throne who flatly refused its legacy of terror, choosing a life of exile and anonymity to keep himself and his family alive. When he finally decided to speak, after years of reflection and wrestling with his own history, Marokin didn't just tell his father's story from a perspective we'd never heard. He challenged the entire world. He challenged the very narrative we have all swallowed whole, the one that has become the foundation of our understanding of this global conflict. In his painful, honest book, Marokin wrote a haunting dedication, a bitter epitaph for the father who chose a path of darkness, for my father who showed me which path not to take. This is not a son defending his monster of a father. This is a testimony from inside the inferno, a desperate attempt to find truth in an ocean of lies and myths. And this is the first part of the Escobar file that rips apart the illusion. Marroquin firmly criticizes popular series like Narcos, which is widely accepted as the truth. He said, and I quote directly, Narcos is the way the United States is telling the world their version of the drug story. This is an incredibly bold statement, a slap in the face to Hollywood and the mainstream narrative. But what exactly does he mean by the American version? Aren't we just seeing the undeniable truth that Pablo Escobar was the villain and those hunting him were the flawless heroes? This is where the uncomfortable truth begins to creep out from the shadows, like thick smoke from a hidden cocaine lab. The war on drugs is often painted as a war between the good guys, America and the Colombian government, and the bad guy, Escobar and his cartel. However, Marroquin points to a crucial fact that is often deliberately erased from the American version, a fact that shows just how hypocritical this war really is, how dirty the hands of the clean heroes truly are. That fact is us, the consumers, the users sitting comfortably in their homes in North America and Europe, demanding a non stop supply of cocaine. Marroquin argues, and I quote, "My father couldn't possibly have gotten cocaine into the United States if the Americans weren't buying it. Remember that number? 15 tons per day. That isn't some abstract, invisible demand. It is a massive, unquenchable thirst coming from the very nations that were most loudly declaring war on his father. This is the unspoken dark side, an unwritten deal, a deadly dance that was never acknowledged. We will provide the product if you provide the market. Without that giant market, without the billions of dollars flowing from wallets in America, the cocaine king might never have become so rich and powerful. He was the giant shadow cast by that greedy demand. This is the first, most fundamental rewrite of history. The war on drugs was not a one-way fight. It was a horrific symbiotic relationship, a global transaction that benefited both sides, even if only one side dared to claim the moral high ground. So who actually created this monster? Who was feeding this beast? This question forces us to wonder, was this war really about stopping drugs and protecting society? Or was it just about controlling the supply, dictating a convenient narrative, and pointing at a scapegoat while the wheels of the system kept turning and the profits kept flowing? The Escobar file exposes this lie, revealing that the loudest voices in the war were the ones most responsible for the endless demand.